Alright, let's dive into this because it's a story that's way more fascinating than it seems at first glance. So, here's the deal. Internal emails from the Portland Trail Blazers reveal that the team's leadership was seriously debating whether to respond to the City of Portland's questions about a proposed $600 million renovation of the Moda Center. Now, on the surface, this might sound like just another bureaucratic back and forth, but personally, I think it's a window into something much bigger: the power dynamics, trust issues, and strategic posturing that define these kinds of negotiations. What makes this really interesting is how the Blazers executives viewed the city's requests. One executive called it a trap, which immediately raises a deeper question: why would a city's questions feel like a trap to a professional sports team? In my opinion, this isn't just about the specifics of rent, labor agreements, or private investment. It's about control, leverage, and the narrative each side is trying to shape. From my perspective, the Blazers' hesitation to respond in writing isn't just about avoiding commitment, it's about not wanting to hand the city a weapon they could use later. And that's where things get really intriguing. If you take a step back and think about it, this is a classic case of two parties with different priorities and timelines. The city wants public accountability and long-term commitments, while the Blazers are focused on flexibility and protecting their interests. What many people don't realize is that these negotiations aren't just about money, they're about trust, or the lack thereof. The fact that the Blazers felt the need to debate whether to respond at all suggests they saw the city's questions as a strategic move, not just a routine inquiry. A detail I find fascinating is the mention of the city's insistence on written responses. Why was that so important to the city? And why did it make the Blazers so uncomfortable? In my opinion, written responses are like a contract: they're binding, they're public, and they can be used against you. The Blazers, on the other hand, seem to prefer verbal answers, which gives them more wiggle room. What this really suggests is that both sides were playing a high-stakes game of chess, where every move is calculated to either gain an advantage or avoid a disadvantage. Now, let's talk about the bigger picture here. This isn't just about the Moda Center or even Portland. It's about the broader trend of cities and sports teams clashing over public funding for private venues. Personally, I think these negotiations are a microcosm of a much larger debate: who benefits more from these deals, the teams or the communities they're supposed to serve? What makes this case stand out is the level of transparency we're getting. These internal emails give us a rare glimpse into the thought process of a sports organization, and it's not pretty. There's paranoia, there's frustration, and there's a clear sense that both sides are operating from a place of distrust. One thing that immediately stands out is the Blazers' concern about how their responses would be perceived publicly. They weren't just worried about answering the questions, they were worried about how those answers would be spun. In my opinion, this speaks to the toxic relationship between sports teams and the cities they call home. It's not just about the money, it's about the narrative. Who gets to tell the story? Who gets to control the message? And what does that say about the balance of power in these relationships? What this really suggests is that these negotiations are as much about PR as they are about policy. Both sides are acutely aware that public opinion matters, and they're willing to play hardball to come out on top. Now, let's zoom out even further. This story raises a deeper question: are these kinds of public-private partnerships worth it? On one hand, you have the potential for economic development and community pride. On the other hand, you have the risk of taxpayer money being used to subsidize billionaire owners. Personally, I think the answer isn't black and white. It depends on the specifics of the deal, the transparency of the process, and the willingness of both sides to compromise. But here's the thing: compromise doesn't seem to be on the table here. The Blazers called the city's proposed term sheet a non-starter, which is basically negotiation speak for, we are not even close. And the city, for its part, seems determined to push for public accountability, even if it means threatening litigation. So, where does this leave us? As of now, the council is set to vote on a final term sheet in August, and both sides say they want a deal by the end of the year. But if you ask me, I'm not holding my breath. These kinds of negotiations are messy, they're emotional, and they're deeply personal. What this really suggests is that the Moda Center renovation might be just the beginning of a much larger conversation about the role of sports teams in their communities. And that, my friends, is what makes this story so compelling. It's not just about a basketball arena, it's about power, trust, and the future of public-private partnerships. So, here's my closing thought: as we watch this drama unfold, let's not just focus on the headlines. Let's think about the underlying dynamics at play. Because in the end, this isn't just about the Blazers and Portland, it's about all of us, and the kind of relationships we want to see between our cities and the teams that call them home. What do you think? Is this just another negotiation, or is it something bigger? Let me know in the comments below.